Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bravo Tea with the Stay at Home Mom. I'm Erica, and I'm ready to talk all things Bravo. Welcome back, everybody. I hope everyone had a good weekend. We are back to our normal schedule. Our daughters are off spring break. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Now, it was nice having them home, but it rained a lot. So that kept for not a very exciting of times. But this is going to be my gossip and recap of Summerhouse. So don't have too much, I feel like, of gossip. Not really gossip, but sad news. Lori Peterson, that is an alum from Real Housewives of Orange County. Her son Josh tragically passed away over Easter, but she just posted about it. And he was only 35, and he's the one that she always kind of had the difficult time with. He always struggled with substance abuse, so that's very sad. My heart goes out to her. Um, he did have a daughter, and the daughter is I think 10 by now when I looked on her Instagram, and her husband George did adopt his daughter a long time ago. So it's not like there will be much change for her, which is good because obviously when things like this happen, when children are involved, it's very sad. So maybe they had adopted her. I think what I read was almost since birth, pretty much. So I don't think she ever lived with Josh. So her day to day won't be that um different, if I can say it like that. Heart goes out to the mom though. That is so sad, the whole family. um and then speaking of Orange County, there was some audio leaked of the ladies on their cast trip in London, and Tamara and Shannon are yelling at each other. They're having a bit of a tiff in London. I couldn't really understand a lot of it because it was I feel like someone was sitting at a table secretly recording it, but Shannon was saying to Tamara, "This is what you do. You get drunk and say mean things and then say, 'Oh, I'm sorry.'" I thought that was funny. And it has to be hard to be friends with someone like Tamara because this is my take on it. Sometimes she may not mean the things she says, but she says it for the show and shock value. So as viewers, we like it. But at the end of the day, if you're on the show and you're actually her friend, you don't like it. And sometimes you can't come back from the things. And you can't be like, "Oh, I'm just going to say this mean thing that's kind of true about you on the show. And then you need to get over it." It's like, no, I'd just rather you not. Maybe be mean to the people we don't like Alexis Bellino, which is leading me to my next discussion. Shannon was on Jeff Lewis's podcast, and she was saying that John Jansen is now coming after her for about $75,000 that she quote unquote owes him, but they never had a paying back agreement. And just going to put my lawyer hat on for a second. If you give someone money and don't make them sign a promissory note making you pay them back or doing a payment schedule, it's considered a gift when you go to court. And she said there are no text messages between them of saying you need to pay me back and this is when I'd like this back. And she said not for nothing, she's given him money or paid for things in their relationship. She said he's only paid for a couple plane tickets during their whole time. So it is a little weird and odd that now he's with Alexis Bellino, and Shannon was previously sued by her ex-husband Jim, I think, Jim Bellino, her and Tamara about bad mouthing him or something. I don't even remember what the lawsuit was about, but she's like, "Well, the only other time I've been sued, Bellino was at the end of it." And Jeff was like, "Oh, okay, so you think she's behind this?" She's like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not saying that." Because, allegedly she doesn't want to get in trouble and accuse her of anything. But yeah, I do find it odd timing and very ironic that he's with Alexis and they're going to come after Shannon for this. It's like, can you just let the woman rest? I mean, is it enough that you have this relationship with Alexis? You're putting it all over social media. She's now going to be on the new season of Orange County with all this. And then I saw a couple weeks ago, Alexis and John had a party and hired Senor Noodles, which was Shannon's guy from last season, having the backyard dinner party. So it's like, how dare you take Senor Noodles away from her. Now that's ruined for her too. Lots of things are ruined for her. But she said she's doing well. They talked about the DUI and stuff on the Jeff Lewis episode. And she said, that obviously it was not wise that she did that. She did do a little like outpatient thing for 30 days. She said she's doing well. And I'm happy for her because I think John just wanted the limelight, as we can see, because he's with someone like an Alexis, who I think she likes the limelight too. So I am curious to see how the next season of Orange County is going to be. But speaking of new seasons, the Real Housewives of New Jersey are coming back May 5th. I cannot wait. Those are my ladies. And we had Rachel Fuda do a little dirty deed last week, posting the cast picture, cropping out Teresa because she is all the way on the end on the right. So Rachel posted the cast picture and cropped her right out of it. And then Melissa Gorga comes in with the comment underneath with a like dead poison X face and then a check mark next to it. So this is definitely going to be interesting because we have heard that Melissa and Teresa did not really film with each other, let alone when they were doing like a couple group events that they just both had to show up for. They did not speak and communicate until, I think, spoiler alert, the last episode. Teresa is going to call her a whore. I don't know if it's to her face or just like out in the open. Um, so they may have actually not even directly ever talked to each other the whole season, which that does have to be hard. So Andy Cohen just recently said, and it was posted on Instagram today, that the way they filmed this season without them communicating is not going to be sustainable moving forward. And I agree. I mean, of course, there are events that everyone has to be together. And when everyone is together, you don't want that weird tension. It's kind of like how we are on Vanderpump Rules right now with Tom and Ariana. I don't know how we will proceed to a next season. Maybe Ariana will be like, thank you, next. I'm going to just keep doing Broadway and all my commercials. She just did a Bic commercial today, another one. I hope she asked Sheena's permission to do it, though, because we don't want to disrupt her. And, it's probably always been Sheena's dream to shave her legs on TV as well as doing Dancing with the Stars. Um, I don't know how they'll move forward with that show either. And then The Valley. We got Jesse and Michelle already announcing that they're separated, which that doesn't shock me. They're already having a terrible marriage thus far on the show. And obviously we all know what's happening with Brittany and Jax. So how are they going to film that show? And then that leads me into what we're about to recap, Summerhouse. How are we going to film next season with Carl and Lindsay not together anymore? But let's take a little break and then we'll get into the recap of Summerhouse. To all my listeners out there, it's not just the Bravo celebrities that want to look beautiful. We do too. Head on over to Studio One Salon for the most amazing extensions, cut, color, or even just a nice shampoo and blowout for when you go out with all your friends to talk about all the latest Bravo tea. Use my code BRAVOT with a stay-at-home mom to enjoy 10% off. And we are back, and we pick right back up with Paige, Amanda, and Lindsay. And Paige is just giving her honest opinion, which we all can appreciate. She's saying, if you need to postpone the wedding, she's not even really saying call it off. She's like, if you need to postpone the wedding because you're having a rough patch, much better to do it right now than get divorced like 2 months into the marriage. So Lindsay said she doesn't think anything is bad enough to call it off. And Paige has me rolling in her confessional. She's so funny. She's like, okay, I get it. Lindsay loves the little storyline of her and Carl, like best friends now become husband and wife. It's totally like a Lifetime movie that I would watch. But this is your real life and it's not working. Sometimes you need to clock out. And I'm like, I hear you. I think Lindsay so badly wants it to work that she's foreshadowing like what's actually going on. Like you're accusing your fiance 2 weekends in a row who is sober of doing cocaine. So it's like, I don't think you should get married. But I think she's like, I'm getting old. I have wasted so much time with all these people. I need to have children. And hey, guess what? Carl is in the friend group. Carl is on my show. This just works. Like our life will be easy together because I do get it. Like they do the show together. Sometimes people can't be with each other that don't understand this. Like I think Paige and Craig ultimately understand what it's like to be in their role. Whereas if Craig dated that rando girl before Paige, maybe she just didn't get it. Like he has to be on TV, he has to do these things, and she got tired of it. So I see Lindsay's thinking in all these ways, but Kyle is then worried he can't give his honest opinion to Carl because they're all having a boy chit chat in the other corner with Carl. And Craig's like, if you're putting in the work, that's great, but make sure Lindsay is too. Like it just seems like you're kind of always apologizing and saying you're working on yourself. Like, is she doing any self reflection? And Kyle is just like really timid of speaking his mind because we all know the reason Carl quit Loverboy is because of Lindsay and put a big strain on their friendship. So obviously, he's not happy about that. And then at the end of the day, can you say you support the relationship if she's doing that to you and then him? And like his whole life, basically. It's like, is she just going to dictate everything Carl's doing? But they are kind of wrapping up the fun party. Kyle bicycles into the pool. I liked this race theme. It was pretty cool. But then Paige grabs Craigie and she's like, let's do my saran wrap prank before everyone comes in. So she takes the saran wrap and puts it on people's like doorway. And it was pretty high up. So unless you're like drunk or like totally not looking, you're going to see that you're walking into the saran wrap. So Sierra knew, but Sierra kind of like pushed Kyle into his room. She's like, come on, you need to change because your clothes are wet from bicycling into the pool. And he did walk into the saran wrap. So that was funny. So she got Kyle on that. But West is just talking to Amanda about Sierra and that he has been abstinence for so long, but doesn't know how long he can wait. He's like, I am a hot blooded male. And, I don't want to wait all summer, but, I'm waiting. And then the previous episode, we know that like everyone was talking about Austin, but he's like, I don't give two shits about Austin, which neither do we all watching because West is definitely different. But the one thing I will say, and, good for Sierra for taking it slow, but they're all like in their 30s, like, you can't take it too slow at this point. I mean, he's a nice guy and you guys are vibing. I mean, you can't just, like, kiss the whole summer. That's not gonna do it for him, and I feel like herself too. Um, she doesn't even really let him spend the night in the room. She has, like, I think 1 or 2 times, but she said that's all we will be doing is sleeping. So, I don't know if Austin just messed with her so much that she's discarded, but also it's kinda like, well, you probably saw what Austin was like on TV. So I don't know why you kind of got yourself into that, but yes, we all think Austin is a douchebag and did screw her over, but I don't think she should hold that over on West, and I am so curious to see what happens with them because when I watch the after show, I can tell that, like, they're just friends current day, but I do wonder if they did end up sleeping together and if they did for a brief moment of time, like, refer to each other as boyfriend or girlfriend. I'm now thinking no, but that makes me sad because I feel like they were cute together. But then Carl, sits in the little pace car alone with Kyle. You could tell Kyle is, like, in his, drunk little mode, and Carl is saying, "I really want you to be a part of our wedding," and Kyle's like, "Of course." So he's singing this is the moment he's gonna ask him to be the best man naturally, or at least a groomsman because Carl officiated Kyle and Amanda's wedding and was a best man. So I think we were all shocked by what was coming out of his mouth. He's like, I would like you to be a flower boy. And Kyle was like, "Oh, not a groomsman?" He's like, "No, your role will be flower boy."
Girl, bye.
I mean, what? A flower boy? First of all, he is too old to be a flower boy. I mean, let alone like a ring boy. And you officiated, like he said in the confessional, Kyle and Amanda's wedding. I mean, whatever, maybe if you don't want him to be the best man, but groomsmen, hello. Like, I don't even know who your other friends are, which we meet later, who they all look like losers. Sorry. Um, he says that Kyle, Andrea, and Luke will be flower boys. So to me, it was also kind of like, I have real friends that are not in the Bravo world as my groomsmen, and you Bravo friend people are going to be the flower boys. Like, so degrading, so confusing, so weird. Only thing we can all chalk it up to that we later get answers from is that Lindsay did this. So Carl does say that Lindsay didn't really want Kyle in the wedding party. But it's like he still kind of is in the wedding party, just in a more degrading way. So this is just another example of why you should not marry her, Carl. She is telling you you can't have one of your best friends who she threw the wrench in the friendship last summer with in the wedding party, let alone possibly being the best man and the most important part of your day. Instead, you bring in these randos to be the groomsmen. And I guess Lindsay doesn't mind them because you probably never see them and they probably don't talk, let alone about her. Ugh. So I wasn't liking that. That was definitely wild. The next day, Paige and Craigie have their chit chat saying what she said to Lindsay about if they need to postpone the wedding. And she's like, you know, Lindsay was so chill this weekend, and this is how it should be. And I love when Craig was like, when chill Lindsay is chill, she's up for anything. She's down to clown. And I'm like, I feel like I've said that too. Is that a Delaware thing that Craig and I are channeling together? But that was so funny. But they are right. Like when she's fun, and when she's spiraling, she's scary. She's kooky. She's lunatic Lindsay, as we say on here on the podcast. But then we see West and Cierra meet up at a cute little rooftop. She shoves some banana bread down his throat. And he's like, God, I just want to have sex with you. And with banana bread if we must. And then Jesse and Danielle come and meet them. And Cierra is saying that she is going to be signing soon with a modeling company. So good for her. She's beautiful. She's gorgeous. She definitely has the model-esque look. And they're like, oh, will you do runway? And she's like, I'm actually too short and I'm too old. And Jesse's like, well, we think you're young and tall, which I do definitely think she's tall. So it is pretty wild to me that she's too tall, or I mean, too short to be on runway. But you know what? Like some of those runway models are kind of scary looking. And our girl Sierra is far from scary looking. So we'll keep her on the good ads. I could totally see her in Victoria's Secret, which I feel like they said that like a year ago. So I don't know if that ever happened. Um, but I could totally see her doing that. And then Jesse said, when are you going to have sex with my friend? And West in the confessional was like, I don't know if there's like a bro code, but also at the same time, I was like, keep going on grilling her, which it's true. Keep going, kind of, because I would like to know. She's like, well, at this rate, never. And it's like, no, Jesse Solomon, did you mess that up for all of us? But Danielle then reveals that she had sex with some drummer from LA. So Danielle's getting more action than West with a stranger, basically, and West has been putting in the time and effort with Cierra. So I hope we have some resolution to their sex life, and he gets a little little sexy time with Cierra. But then all the men go get fitted for their suits, and we see an appearance from our hot man, Andrea. Thank goodness he's coming back for a little camera action. I don't know where Luke was. He must have been chopping wood and making maple syrup and playing like ice hockey. He couldn't give us a couple minutes on camera. But we see all the rando friends of Carl. Don't care. That's what I mean. So ugly. Let's just get the camera back on Andrea. He is talking to Kyle. And he's like, "How do you feel about us being flower boys?" And Andrea, I feel like sometimes, even though he lives in America and has lived here for a long time, he still doesn't understand things. So he's like, "I didn't really understand, and then I, like, realized and knew," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And Kyle's like, "Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was so hurt, and this is, like, not what I thought I'd be doing on Carl's wedding day." And Andrea's like, "I understand that for you." So maybe Andrea's like, I don't expect to be, like, main cast in the wedding, but I get it for you, like, you should be." Which is true. I mean, that's what we're all thinking. But Andrea is staying the weekend at the house, and ironically, it is Italian weekend. So this weekend is Paige's turn to have the theme, and she has chosen to have a nice Southern Italian dinner that is going to be catered and all set up and all cleaned up. And no other way would I think Paige would do this. Love that for her and them. And she is riding up with Jesse Solomon. And she's like, "How was your week?" And he said, "I went on 2 dates." And she's like, "Oh, okay, good. Like, would you bring this girl to the house?" And he's like, "For sure not." And she's like, "Okay." Like, I feel like he goes on all these dates. I'm A, wondering if he actually goes on all these dates, and B, wondering why he's going on all these dates if he doesn't really like these people enough to bring them to the house. Like, maybe let's just narrow it down and just go out on dates of people you like. Because in my last recap of Summerhouse, I said, "Is he paying for all these dates? That's a lot of dates." He said he went on 4 the one week, and it's like, that's a lot. Unless they're splitting the bill, and he's like, "I have too many dates to go on this week. You have to pay for your own tacos and margaritas. Sorry, girl." But Andrea and Kyle are picking up Amanda, and Kyle is telling Andrea that he went out with all the rando groomsmen after the fitting, and it was kinda like a, like, on the spot bachelor party, and it was during the week, and he got home. So, I think it was Thursday. He got home at, like, 4 in the morning, and Amanda was pissed, just so pissed. And, they're riding down. Jesse and Paige arrive first. Caterers arrive. She's like, "Yep, just set everything up." And her and Jesse are just sipping on some pear flavored lover boy, just living life. And then Carl and Lindsay come. The door is like oddly, like, getting stuck, but it's so funny, like, the door is kinda stuck. Lindsay gets it open and then does not stand there to hold it open for Carl, and it, like, slams on Carl. Another notice of why they shouldn't be getting married. Lindsay isn't even gonna make sure the door isn't closing on you, Carl, and your hands are full with a bunch of their suitcases basically and packages at the door. I feel like they all get their packages, like, delivered to the house because it's better than getting it delivered to the apartment that they all live in. Because I know that they do get stuff delivered to dress up in their themes, but sometimes they and, like, the decorations, but sometimes there's so many packages there that I'm like, I bet they just get their regular, like, packages sent there so that it's not possibly stolen from their apartment. Even though at this point, I feel like they all live in apartments that have, like, doormen, but just food for thought. That's my thought when I see all these packages. So Paige is finding out about the flower boy situation. So it's her, Lindsay, Carl, and Jesse having the chit chat outside. And Carl's like, "Yeah, we all got fitted for our suits." And Jesse's like, "Oh, okay. Is Kyle in the wedding party?" And he's like, "Yes, he's in the wedding party." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Is he a groomsman?" And he's like, "No, he's a flower boy." Paige's face. I love that the camera's like, we need to pan to Paige right now for the facial reaction. Her eyebrow kind of did like a lift. And then in her confessional, she said, "It may look like I'm just listening to this conversation, but inside I'm bursting." She's like, "Oh, I wonder whose idea it was to make Kyle a flower boy." And then they pan to a picture of Lindsay, and she's like, "Yes, she was thinking you throw flowers as I walk down the aisle." Yes, that's what she was thinking. She's crazy. And then she's like, "And Carl, you're nuts. When you told that to Kyle, I would have slapped you in your face and said, 'All right, have fun at your wedding. See ya.'" Like, her 2 confessionals, like, the one about the Lifetime movie and them needing to hang it up, and then this one, I'm like, God, Paige is great. Her and James Kennedy currently are giving me the best confessionals right now, currently, I'd say, for Bravo shows. Just so funny. But yeah, again, totally demeaning and crazy. Um, then the non-alcoholic lover boys arrive. So Kyle is unboxing them with Carl, and he's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is finally coming to like fruition because we've been talking about it and now it's here." So the awkward thing is they were like talking about doing this when Carl was still in Loverboy. And then Bulldozer Lindsay made him basically resign from Loverboy. And now he's just stayed jobless because he's miserable and doesn't know what to do, and had like a life coach for 6 months, or career coach, and still has no career but being on Bravo. And Lindsay's getting fed up with it and unattracted to him. And now these non-alcoholic lover boys arrive, and it's kind of like a gateway to come back. And Kyle's like, we could do like a lesser role for you. You could get like a percentage of sales just from this. You would be the perfect face for it because you're sober. Because I'm sure, like in Kyle's brain, he's thinking like, I can't market sober stuff because everyone knows I'm not sober. But obviously, having someone like be the face for the non-alcoholic beverage that is sober makes the most sense. Like, I saw Kyle Richards, not to derail and talk trash either, but she, like, promotes mamitas, and it's like, that's so stupid. Like, you don't drink anymore. Like, the daughters are over there on Buying Beverly Hills drinking it. They should be promoting it. So, I find it totally stupid that she promotes it because it's like, girl, you don't drink them, and mamitas doesn't have a non-alcoholic canned beverage. So, how can you tell me they're good? Because you don't even drink them. So, that's very goofy. I'm sorry. But I think it's smart to have Carl do this, and then he's like, "Yeah." He's, like, thinking, like, he's like, I'm gonna think it over, AKA, I'm gonna talk to the ward and Lindsay and make sure it's okay for me to work with you again because it wasn't okay for me to have you as a groomsman. You had to be a damn flower boy in my wedding because Lindsay is crazy and thinks this whole thing is just about herself." Ah, sorry. Tangent on lunatic Lindsay. But they all then sit down to their beautiful Italian-themed dinner, and Kyle and Amanda are talking about looking at the house. Oh, I forgot to say, they looked at a house because they wanna move out. Well, when I say they, she wants to move out of the city. So they look at this house, super cute. I feel like they portray it being in New Jersey, but it's not. It's actually in the Hamptons because someone obviously did the dirty work and looked it up. And she's like, "Sorry if there was any confusion. We never said we necessarily wanted to move to New Jersey, just the suburbs. And we love the Hamptons and thought this would be a great investment property. And while we're not using it in the summer, rent it out," which would be so smart. So the Hamptons isn't like that far for them to drive, especially like in the winter. Like the summer, it is a little far with the traffic. But they don't need a Hamptons house in the summer because they have the one provided by Bravo. So they can rent this one out like for so much money. I saw on Zillow when someone looked it up, $22,000 a month to rent just because it's in the Hamptons. Because it was like 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It was literally so tiny. The only amazing part about the house was the backyard was huge and beautiful and private and had a lovely pool. But the house was so small. I mean, fine for them, for like themselves, but I was like jaw to the floor of like how much it could rent for. Cause I'm like, how much does the one they reside in rent for? Like 80,000? Cause it's like a mansion and like a lot bigger. Um, so that was interesting. They went and looked at there. Kyle is not really ready to leave the city. But what he needs to understand is like, if they're going to have kids, like it has to be, I know people do it, but it has to be very difficult to raise kids in the city. And they both have agreed before this that they don't want to raise kids in the city. So Amanda's like, okay, time is ticking. I would like to maybe get settled in a house. Like, I don't want to be like giving birth and then we're moving into a house. Um, so they're just talking about the house. And she said she wants somewhere to escape for weeks or a month at a time. And everyone was like, okay, you're going to like leave your husband for a month to like live somewhere else. That was so weird. They're like a relationship too that I think is weird. I think at the end of the day, they should be married more so than Lindsay and Carl were, but I don't understand how they're married either. I feel like they're always bickering, always kind of putting one another down, and they're never on the same page, like about anything. Like, especially big things like this. It's like knowing where you want to live is a big deal. But the thing that I think is poopy of Kyle is Amanda says before they were married, they both agreed that they want to live in like the suburbs and have backyards because that's how they grew up and that's how they want their kids to grow up. So if Kyle is retracting from that, that is not fair. I don't know if he's thinking in his brain, well, we don't have kids yet, so I have time to still party it up in the city. But it's like you're like 41. Like let's hang it up for a minute. Like I don't know what's with the age of 41. It's like Tom Sandoval, Tom Schwartz, Kyle, Jax. I think is a little older than 41, or he may be 41, but it's like none of these men wanna grow up. I mean, Craigie is like 35 and he's a grown man and has his own house. I don't know. I would be tired of the city as well. I think what he should do is like keep his apartment or maybe, get a different one and keep the headquarters of work in the city, but every night you could drive home. It's not an odd thing. People do that. They certainly can't drive home every night to the Hamptons, but he could totally live in the suburbs of New Jersey, not far. I mean, we see like the Real Housewives of New Jersey. They go in to the city a lot to New York for work stuff or dinner, and it takes about 45 minutes for where they are to get to New York City. So they could do that. And then maybe she could be on the Real Housewives of New Jersey. No, I'm just kidding. Let's keep it on Summerhouse. But I thought that chat was interesting. We're going to get more into it on the next episode. We see that Kyle says to her, I'm a very social person, but being married to you is very lonely. Kyle. And then I hope we divulge into this flower boy situation more. I want to see if Paige is going to say something to Lindsay because she has a lot of thoughts on it. And she was talking to Amanda and Cierra about it. And Amanda's like, yeah, I mean, I'll make him be the best, cutest flower boy if I must give him pigtails and his mullet. Maybe it's a good thing at the end of the day. We'll leave on this note that they didn't get married. So we did not have to subject Kyle to be a flower boy. And I bet not for nothing, Lindsay is going to come out one day and say, Kyle put a voodoo hex on my marriage and relationship just so he didn't have to be a flower boy. Or maybe this is karma, Lindsay, for emasculating him and taking away some of him, Luke, and Andrea's manhood by demoting them to flower boys, that this is the karma you are reaping. You are now not married. But I think we could close out on the note at the end of the day. It's a good thing they're not married because as we see thus far on Summerhouse, it's not going too well. As always, this was so fun, and you could find me on Instagram at Bravo T with the Stay at Home Mom, Spotify, and Apple. Till next time, see ya.